Well, I think what I'd like to do is not have, I don't have a canned program. We got great conditions, but I really want all this to be about why you're here and what you want to leave this clinic with, so we can kind of tailor the on-water programs to you. So here's kind of, I don't want to have everybody in the room answer all these questions, you know, your name, your home, your boat, and why are you here, but I'm going to write a list. If we could have one spokesman for each boat, if you can kind of speak for your boat, what you'd like to achieve skill-wise at the end of this little clinic. I can write a list and we can kind of focus on those items. So if, let's kind of work our way around the room here. Let's see.
Jamie Michaels.
All right, Jamie, here we go.
From Fort Florida, Tallahassee region, sailing Gulf of Mexico down there. And I started sailing. I took this clinic at Fort Walton with Randy about 3 years ago. It was the very first time I'd ever sailed a trimaran at all. So I'm really here just to, at that time I didn't even know what he was talking about. So now I've been racing, a couple of years now, and I'm really interested in just honing our skills. I've got Joe with us, fly here.
Very good. What are your weakest links? What are your challenge on the race course out there?
Just handling, the logistics.
What would you put yourself in needing to work on mechanics? Spinnaker up, down, tack, jibe, or would it be speed?
No, definitely downwind. Downwind is probably my weakness.
Right. Okay.
Before I got this boat, I never sailed a boat.
All right.
That's really what I'd like to learn how to handle.
Okay. Did you miss something?
Okay. Either on, but not a trimaran.
All right. Maybe Alan, why don't you?
Yeah, I'm Alan Moore. I have blue. You wonder which boat blue is? Yeah, the blue one. It's a 32 from Florida with Jim and Andy. The boat I've had a year and a half now. My big thing is downwind and light air.
Downwind, light air. Okay. Right. Okay. That's pretty quick, simple.
Guys, Mike Garum here with my wife Tiffany and
Yep.
Jason. We are on Screecher 25 feet from Ohio. And I would love to learn how to sail a boat faster in light breeze.
Light breeze primarily.
Especially Screecher.
Screecher. Yep.
And tactics, looking at the course, where we're
Right.
going to find pressure. Anything else?
I was going to just say, yeah, I got to be faster than That's it.
Okay.
That clinic starts.
That's good.
On Friday.
Okay, go ahead.
Garrett's uncle. I'm here with the 750 Mark II. Here with my dad Ed. Here because of my dad Ed. The Bobby Dalton 2020 has been bugging me to come and do this.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Garrett.
Garrett, sorry.
I was here with David Schneider last year on his 760R. Saw how cool the event was, how cool all you were. So I just want to be safe, fun, and fast, and probably learn some downwind, shoot up and down techniques. Haven't really done a lot of blue racing with the boat. Mostly distance races. I guess maybe how to trick out some of the racing.
Okay. Sounds good. Yep.
I'm Rory Cumming.
Right.
We have a Corsair 37C, Stingray. And I am mainly interested in mainsail trim.
Okay, very good.
And how to, and so really the three things are mainsail trim, really how to optimize VMG. You don't point as high as you can, you point lower than that, and
Right.
how do you figure out, with the wind and wave state.
Yep, okay.
And then the third thing is, helming and waves downwind.
Waves, downwind, okay. Excellent, okay.
Hi, I'm Bill Kuhn from Austin, Texas with Juke and Dom. Really first time here, excited to be here. Got a Sprint 750. I think what we're most interested in, Randy, is kind of learning how to optimize trimming the jib and main together
Yep.
dynamically during in-leg, you know, the adjustments to make in a leg between those two sails to optimize average boat speed.
Okay. Primarily upwind, you're thinking? Yep. Okay.
Patrick Pettengill from West I have a F-31. It's actually a boat I owned many years ago, but didn't really race except for one event here, I think in 2011. I'm mainly interested in just having fun, but also just kind of the spinnaker sets. We have a weird spinnaker socket. Before, when I owned the boat, we never used the spinnaker. I never raced the boat before, so I'm just trying to get to a certain extent up to speed. I have a decent amount of multi-hull experience, but not really on this boat.
Yep. Very good.
I know Randy from a long time.
I'm EJ Van Sickle. I'm from here. Been here about 25 years. I'm part of that. Smyth, my crew. I'm on an F-17. I'm lettered. I've had it for 25 years. Been at many of these events, but and done some long distance stuff. Probably most interested in the spinnaker trim and stuff. Getting into the really wide array. So,
Very good. Any more boat? We miss?
Pete Patello.
Pete, of course.
Elder Ray,
Yep.
F-33. Again, I think we've done almost every event of this over the years.
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing right now for an Elder Ray, of course, we've had Randy teach us some things in the past. I don't know how much of that stuck, so we're going to verify how much we need to relearn.
Yeah.
I know I tell people, he gave me the nickname years ago in a clinic we did as 90 was my nickname, because it's 90% my fault. I think it's 110 or 95 or something
Yeah.
today, so I tell people that. But I think from reinforcing things we're doing right or wrong, but also to make sure that we stay one step ahead of Blue. So we want to make sure Alan on the 32 are
Right,
which
yeah.
are very similar boats, that
Right.
we just
Yeah.
continue to be in front of him.
Yeah.
And so don't teach him too much. I
Yeah,
told him
yeah.
when he got the boat, I would help him until he beat me, and I'm going to shut
All
the
right,
hell up.
all right.
So,
But what specifically you want to learn here yourself?
well, I think, again, like just reinforcing some of the things we're doing. There's been some discussion on our boat as far as potentially footing off a little more or trying to maximize that VMG a little more.
Yep.
There's always been a discussion. We have a lot of, my crew's been with us now for really about 25 years, so we're all Hobie Cat sailors, so
Yep.
we always like to make sure we get everything just perfect.
Right.
But
Yep. Good.
Certainly reinforcing, again, how much we foot off. I think there's times when we think we're probably a little bit tighter. I hate to
Okay.
use the word pinch, but
Yeah.
that word has been used on our boat
Yeah.
a few times.
Okay.
So making sure that we're really maximizing VMG.
Okay.
Hey, Randy, before we
Yes.
start, I'd like to add to that. I'm Mike Patello. I'm also on Elder Ray.
Oh, very good.
So one of our big challenges is we have too many skippers on the boat.
Okay. So which one are you going to eliminate?
Former
Yeah.
Hobie sailors that are all skippers. So
Right.
that's-
Chain of command or something. Okay. All right. Well,
They're still together, so we've
yeah.
posted them something.
Okay.
Just don't have two bad starts in a row, the helm's going to change.
Mike, would you like to respond to that? Because I'd like to do it.
Yeah. Maybe we'll turn the page on that one. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry.
My name is Rob Covers.
Oh, okay, Rob.
My
Yep.
skipper isn't here, but I'm crewing on Ollie.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's
Yeah.
on boat 35.
And you're crewing on Elder Ray today.
Well, I just talked to Tim, and
Oh, is he going out now?
he's got a work appointment, and he's going out this afternoon.
Okay,
He said he
no
should be
problem.
done with work quarter after.
Yep.
Okay, no problem.
Very
So
good.
we would pick you up if you did
Okay.
arrive. So.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, what do you guys want to work on your boat?
Well, I'm kind of new to racing multi-hulls. I mean, I've done it a little bit, but I have a lot more monohull experience than
Yep,
multi-hull. To me, one of the things I would like to learn is really optimizing mast rotation.
Rotation. Okay.
Because to me, they're hard to recognize too much or too little. And then, the little bit of crewing I've done on Ollie, and this is by no means meant as any kind of criticism, but with the rig setup, I'm not sure that some of the things make sense. And again, coming from dinghies and monohulls more, and to me it seemed like they're like the shrouds. There's basically two sets of shrouds, and one of them is always tight, and the other one is adjustable. And to me, would seem I would set the other ones up to be tight, and so I would switch that around.
Okay,
but
yeah.
So
All
that,
right.
that kind of
Okay.
thing, basically controlling
Yeah.
mast bend and mast
Yeah.
rotation
Yeah.
is some of the mysteries that I'd like to learn a little bit more about.
So I think you're a new entry to the call, Multihull.
Yeah,
I know you've been in a Mark II, F-24 Mark II over in Caseville, and so you're getting some experience with that one.
Right. Yeah.
Welcome to Multihull.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking, I sold my monohull, and,
Gee.
so I'm looking to buy a monohull,
Yeah.
something that, that my wife is also okay with.
Yeah.
And I was originally thinking like a 28, but then when I showed my wife a 28, she said it's too much like camping. So I may have to concede and go to like a 31 or even bigger. Not much.
There's a 37 out here, but I don't think it's for sale yet.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm looking around for something.
Yeah, Pete, real quick, I was just gonna jump on the Ollie bandwagon. I think Tim's gonna come out with us, when he gets out of work. And if you're more than welcome to join us as well on Panic Button. Because Tim's not gonna take Ollie out, so he was gonna.
Okay, if
come
he's
out
changing,
with us.
you're welcome to come and know the rig.
One thing.
When I talked to him last night, we say, hey, you're welcome to come out with us.
Yeah, so I guess we'll gotta figure that out.
We'll figure it out before we leave.
But real quick.
Just as I was walking in, Tim was walking out,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he said, if you stick around, we can take Ollie out. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
If, I may add to your list, Tim and I were talking about it last night, starting is
Start.
something that is often overlooked. At
Yep.
the start of the race, to have an advantage over the other boats is really important.
Yep.
And strategy in starting is something I'd love to learn about. And
Okay.
Tim and I were talking about that, so.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Keith Smiley, and for a dozen years I sailed an F-31, Western Shore of Lake Erie, one season, and down in Naples, Florida, the same year. Today I'm crewing with Patrick on his F-31.
Yeah.
And my question relates sort of on an extension of the mast rotation rigging issue, but more along the lines of being able to point up as high as possible to maximize the VMG, and how setting the rig, maybe canting forward, would affect that or maximize that ability to point up into the wind. I remember last time we were here, Ron White, cheeky monkey, had this cant way back and he could point way up.
Yeah.
My experience with an F-31 is the more you bring that rig back, the more weather helm you get.
Okay.
And that's why with my 31, I always kept it balanced, but sacrificed the ability to point up.
Right.
I mean, that
Yep.
was 110 probably.
Yep. Right.
From point to point.
Yep. Okay, we'll add that to our list. All right. Well, let's try to answer a few at once here. Let me draw the other half of this in with our rotating mast. We're going upwind, and let's try to get every square foot of the jib, every square foot of the main powered up as best we can. So it's obviously not maybe yesterday where it's blowing over 20, but every other day where you're looking for power is what this discussion will pertain to. It won't be depowering, it won't be overpowering. So the idea is to start at the front of the bus and work to the back. So jib, mast, main, and in the main specifically travelers, the bottom half, and the main sheet's the top half. So we're going to go jib, mast, traveler, main is our sequence. If we had a Screecher, it'd be Screecher first and work our way back. With spinnaker, it's going to go spinnaker, jib, mast, main. So the concept would be the same whether we're going upwind or downwind, but right now we'll just focus on, let's get all these sails working in harmony, max power, upwind. So the very first one is, we'll put some names on these babies. So that's going to be your steering Telltale. And these would just be your jib lead. And then these are your traveler. And like I said, the main sheet up here. Okay, so let's just start in the front of the bus. We're going upwind. We're going to have to arbitrarily set your jib. I don't know which boat we're on. Let's just say, for arbitrary sakes, let's just put the jib 3 inches off the spreader. That doesn't matter yet, but it's going to be your report card at the end of this little discussion. So number one, we set our jib sheet, and then the helmsman is going to just be a robot. He's going to just be an instrument, and these are steering telltales. So let's, before we graduate to anything else, let's talk about what we're talking about. So if this is our jib, and we got a windward telltale and a leeward telltale, what we want to have is that leeward telltale flow. If that one's got some dancing, certainly spinning, that means the front of the sail stall all the way to the back. That's not what we want. We want to have turn this wind as much as we can. We're looking for power. So the 100% of the time that leeward telltale has to be just glued to the back of the sail, not with salt water, but you know, the wind. Okay, the windward one, if it's totally streaming back, multihulls have a tendency to go faster and faster and faster. The parent wind goes farther and farther forward, and then pretty soon you're on a close reach and you're not really going upwind anymore. I call it the ice boat effect, because you have the ability to accelerate. So what I want to see is this windward telltale have a little bit of motion. That's going to prove that you're actually going upwind. If you get them both streaming back perfectly, you can do that ice boat effect quickly. So the windward one's going to have a little dancing, not the full spin job, but it's going to have some movement. And that's what the instrument that the skipper is going to be steering by, is to have it look exactly like that. Leeward side flowing, windward side got some motion. That means he's steering by however you set that jib trim. That's what he's going to do throughout this little exercise. So we're going to tune the boat from the front back. First thing, we're going to optimize the top and bottom of the jib. So if the jib sheet was back here on the back of your track, it's going to flatten out the bottom of the jib, and the top, as he's gyrating his steering to follow the wind, it's going to luff first to the top, so the top's not matching the bottom. So in that case, we would move the jib lead forward a bit until, if you headed up, the entire luff would break evenly, would luff evenly. That means your top and the bottom of the jib are matched for that apparent wind that you're sailing to. So it might have to move the jib lead a little bit to achieve that. So once you do that, the driver is still just focused on the steering. Now you can walk back to the mast. So if that was the jib, so we'll just draw the mast in here. And what we want to do is have this leeward side of the mast turn into a sail. The sail's not here. You don't have a concave, and you don't have the sail over here where you got a big V on the back side. You can do this blindfolded. Take your hand and just make the mast and the sail into one. So you rotate the mast until the leeward side is one big wing. You know, so it just fares right in there. That's why we have rotating masts. I don't care that you've got some turbulence on the windward side, because we're not talking about high wind reducing drag. We're talking about maximum power. So the only thing you want to do is just get the leeward side of the mast fared into the sail. End of story. So that's our mast, so jib, mast. And then we want to graduate to getting the main optimized. And the traveler telltales are sort of a misnomer upwind, because it's going to be almost impossible to have them not look perfect, because the jib's backwinding the main. So this is the one thing where you kind of have to arbitrarily set the traveler such that the boom is on center line. The traveler is not on center line, but the boom is. And that's, on most of these boats, a pretty darn good spot to start. So it might take the traveler up 6, 8, 10, I don't know how many inches up from center line to get the boom. So the actual boom is on the center of your boat. So that's the one thing you just kind of have to set. There won't be the telltales won't answer that. These traveler telltales we can use downwind to reaching, but not upwind, because they're going to flow, because the jib's going to make them flow, no matter where the traveler is. So crank the traveler up till they get the boom in the center line. And now the critical thing is the main sheet, and that's going to be the top of the sail. So if you ease the sheet out, the top twists off, especially with the square tops, that we use today. So you'll basically start out, and the best way to do this exercise is start out where all these telltales are flowing, but that doesn't mean you've got much power. It could have, American flag, if they had telltales, they'd be flowing, but there's no power being developed, right? So start out with the main sheet a little too loose, and then I just want you to pull it in. Now the only way this works is if the helms person is steering properly. So you have to be kind of a swivel head. Make sure when you're the main sheet person on the boat today, and you're trimming by these telltales, I'm going to exactly tell you how to set. You actually look at the jib, make sure you're steering right, then look at your main, and go back and forth, because what we're trying to do is get both of these sails in harmony, and if the driver's not driving by the steering telltale, you're not going to have them in harmony. So basically, that's a really critical part of this exercise, is to make sure the driver's following the shifting wind, and that the telltales are looking good. Anyway, so what I'd call these is my 25, 50, 75, and 100%. These are really a great set of 4 telltales to have. One, the 100's right on the leech, and the other 3 are just spaced along up near the Corsair logo or whatever your boat is. Just above the jib is a good spot to put that row of telltales. So like I say, if you start out and all the telltales are flowing, you haven't come to this clinic, okay? So what you want to do is have I'll draw just the mainsail here and the mast. The leeward side's all fair. We already rotated the mast properly. We got the 25%, the 50%, the 75%, and then the little leech telltale on the back. What I want you to do is start out with all these flowing, the sail's too far out, and slowly pull in, and you'll see it'll actually start to have separated flow from the back toward the front. So the first telltale that's going to talk to you is a leech telltale. So if it's flowing in this looking for power mode, you're not sheeted in yet. Keep pulling it in until you start to lose that telltale, and it should be either dead or spinning or only occasional flowing. The next one, the real critical one for your main sheet, is this one, the 75%. And I want that one to be dancing, and might even stall, go. And that'll mean you just have laminar flow all the way to here, and it starts to separate in the back. So that's what that one's going to tell you. If you get some laminar or flow breaking off at about the 75% mark, that's going to be your max power. So that's going to probably be a lot more main sheet than you're maybe used to having, especially you came from Multihull. You might actually, Multihull's a whole different story without the rotating mast like the F-27. This telltale story won't work. The mast is a big square block in the front, and it doesn't rotate, so the front one doesn't flow. It's all backwards. So I'm only talking to all the boats here, that have a rotating mast to set up this exact main sheet, method. And that's going to dial you in, believe me, to just like click, 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 done. There's no seat of the pants. There's no it feels good. Feel the power. It's a red light, green light story. So if you just follow this technique, by that telltale, you'll optimize the main sheet, and you're done. Now you got the jib, the mast, the top, and the bottom of the main. You're going upwind. So you did all your homework. So let me just stop there before I go any farther, if there are any questions on that setup.
And so when you're sailing in a place where now you have wind velocity changes of 50%,
Yep.
right? So you're sailing on a leg, and
Yep.
half that leg is going to be at X speed, and the other half is going to be at 2X.
Yeah.
What do you do
Um,
to deal with that to deal with that balance?
Well, let me not answer your question.
Okay.
I can answer your question, but I'm going to put it a little bit later.
Fair enough.
Okay. So let's just say we went through this exercise and the wind's steady, okay, and we're steering steady and all that kind of stuff. The problem with this whole exercise is the initial thing that we set was the jib sheet arbitrarily on this. I just picked a number out of the sky, 3 inches off the spreader. Who knows if that's the right VMG for your boat? Here's how you find out. We're going to tack. Before you tack, all these boats have a lot of things at 90 degrees. You can sight down the back of the main hatch, down the rear beam, down the front beam, 90 degrees. That's our key number, 90 degrees. I'll write it down here. Okay, so you're sailing along, this driver's still on the telltales. We're going to tack the boat and duplicate everything we just did, our little homework assignment here on the other tack. The Main sheet doesn't come uncleated. We already did our homework to figure out the telltales. The traveler is going to be X amount, 9 inches of windward. When you tack, put it 9 inches of windward on the other side, so you duplicate it exactly how we just set this thing up. The mast rotation, it should self-tack in your hardware. So it's exactly the same, don't have to think about that. And the jib you're going to set arbitrarily at 3 inches off the spreader, let the boat get up to speed, steer by the telltale, and that tactician, whoever sighted down the hatch or the beam, finds out if you did tack at 90 degrees by the sighting he took, sighting down the beam before you tacked, the White House, the whatever, you know. You can do it by compass, obviously, too. But if you have anything around the area here that you can sight, tack, and see if you aim for that building. And if you did, 3 inches was the magic number. If you're pointing too high, like you tacked in 80 degrees instead of 90, you're going too slow. You're pointing high, but you're VMG. Most of these boats, 90 degrees is a pretty good number to answer. So you next time try it at 6 inches off the spreader because you're pointing too high. And then you go through the same exercise we just did at the jib leach, 6 inches off the spreader, and then do the same routine, tack, see if you tack to 90. If it's 100, oh, now you're going too fast. You're reaching all over the course. Try 4 or 5 inches, whatever, Dial your boat in until you get this magic number here, and you're going to be pretty darn close to what the optimal for all these boats is for VMG. There's probably little exceptions if it's wavy, maybe no, smooth, maybe a little better, but let's just believe that 90-degree number is gospel, and if you follow that, we'll get the jib will tell you exactly where to trim it, how many inches off the spreader, and then you know your boat, and then you're racing, you can get your head figuratively out of the boat and start looking at wind shifts and tactics and port starboards and ley lines and all that good stuff, and you don't worry about any of this stuff as long as you're steering by the steering telltale. Now you've got both sails pretty much in harmony. Bingo. Yeah, I think we answered a lot of things you were asking about. Mast rotation and sail trim, mainsail trimming, and VMG all in one. Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about batten tension on the main sheet?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So if we had a batten tension, let's pick any batten, like who knows that one. The very first thing you want to do is look at your sail when it's up, and I don't care about wrinkles out here. If there's any wrinkles on the pocket, you can blame that specifically on your batten tension. So if it's too loose, tighten the line or the rocket adjuster, whatever you have on your boat, until you get rid of any possible wrinkles on the actual pocket. So that'll kind of match pull the sail tight. And then anything tighter than that is what I would call the hungry dog effect. If you didn't feed your dog enough, the ribs sort of stick out. So at each old batten, if it pokes out at each batten, you got them too tight. So that's the two differentials on batten tension. Too loose, wrinkles; too tight, hungry dog effect. Get it just smooth. Don't worry about it.
How about curvature?
The curvature has nothing to do. Well, not nothing to do with it. I don't really advocate putting the hungry dog or the wrinkles. So I would say if your sail's too flat, maybe your batten's too stiff. So the batten, you can put a different batten in or grind it down or whatever. But the batten tension isn't a really great way of adjusting your sail shape because you're only adjusting the sail shape right at the little batten pocket. You just get a little bulge there. It doesn't really change the whole sail. I want the whole sail to be consistent, fuller or flatter if you have the wrong shape. Or perhaps the diamond wires, or there's other little Cunningham and getting into the nuances of trimming. But
So if your sail was designed incorrectly, then batten's not going to build it. It's just gonna
either you have the wrong battens, perhaps, maybe they're too stiff or too,
the wrong sail.
yeah, right. Yeah, there could be some issues, yeah, right. Yes?
Yes, I want to make sure I heard you right on the telltales.
Yep.
You're saying the leach telltale, the upper leach telltale should not be flowing?
Right, because you're a monohull sailor, so on your monohull, yes, on this one, no.
75%
Yeah, right.
The 75% telltale should be breaking how?
Yes.
How much?
About half the time.
About half
Yeah,
the time.
right.
So if the leach telltale, to me, it would seem like you're oversheeted at that point.
Yeah, most people would say oversheeted, but you're going to feel today if you do it this way, you're going to go, wow, we've got some more power than I'm used to having.
So why would a multihull?
Oh, well, okay.
Oversheeted be faster compared to monohull?
Okay, let's just draw on a ugly mast in the front of your monohull with the same, let's say, telltales. You're going to have a big turbulence in the front couple feet at least of your mainsail that's not really doing anything. So the first Telltale you're going to get to flow is maybe the 50% one. On a typical monohull, the 25% one is a joke. You're not going to have attached flow in the front. So you've got this part flowing, and it's kind of funny. I just watched YouTube of Mike Ingham. He's, we won a bunch of Thistle Nationals and things like that, and he was talking about, monohull, obviously, that kind of the same thing, but his Telltale number was the 100% one. He said in the power up conditions, not when it's windy, it should only flow at the most half the time. And he said, don't just glance at it because it'll give you a bad reading. Stare at it for a little bit and get an average flow, drop. So he's a little more flow than I'm saying, because he had these two flowing and this one not flowing at least half the time. So that was kind of his monohull dissertation of optimum telltales. But if you do have that telltale flowing, you'll feel right away that you have less power, which is not what we want. Our boats have so much riding moment. We can take the power. We're not heeling over. We're not in the conditions we're talking about. More power, more speed, more trophies. So we're trying to power this baby up. Yeah.
In trimming the main and the main sheet, twist off of the main, is that something to avoid or something to recognize that you get more power higher up with a different area?
Yeah. The beauty of this technique is that you've got gradient winds. Sometimes it's a little bit skewed up at the top masthead versus the bottom, and all this technical talk. But if you follow the telltales, they'll actually they'll optimize for that day. Some days you might have more twists than another day, but who cares? The telltales don't lie. If you follow that technique, you'll optimize for whatever is going on that day in the terms of the, it's always windier up the masthead than the bottom. So if you're going 10 knots through the water and you got 10 knots of wind at the bottom and let's just say 20 knots of wind at the top, you got totally different apparent wind angles top to bottom. That's why you need some twist, is because it's not as windy at the top. I mean, it's windier at the top than the bottom. So that's why the bottom's always getting headed and the top is more in a reach because it's windier up there. So yes, you always need some twist, but don't get technical. Just the telltales will tell you that answer. Yep.
As the wind builds, what's the best way to depower? Is it traveler or twist?
I'm not trying to graduate to depower because a lot of this stuff goes out the window if I go to depower.
Okay.
So let me do it. Let me start all over with a depower talk, but not this minute.
Okay.
Let's try to focus on this at the moment of what I think we're going to have on the water. But yeah, that's a valid question, and we'll try to hit that too. Okay.
Can you finish with luff tension on that hull?
Luff tension?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you've got two things. Let's just not ignore both sails. So the jib is going to be a sail that if you've got, scallops in the hanks or wrinkles in the roller furler or whatever, basically the sail, let's just draw a little separate page cartoon of sail shape. So if this is what you're trying to get out of a jib for sail shape, if your luff is loose, wrinkles, it probably won't look like that. It'll probably be a really fine entry, and the draft will go aft. And that's a very hard to steer sail, and it's not the airfoil shape you're looking for. You want to have the round entry and a real flat exit where it doesn't backwind the main too much. So this would be the luff is too loose. This one's when you pull the luff tight and pull the draft forward, hopefully around a 35% number, and you'll see the entry get a little bit rounder. So that's what the jib would do. The main, with its mast, whatever, in the front, it's already kind of getting backwinded by a jib. So you don't want a big round entry sort of like a jib. You want a little bit finer entry, but you still want the mast, the draft about 40, where this was, what do we say, 30 or 35. So the jib's a little bit further forward of where you want the draft because it's the first sail. But the main is getting backwinded, so you don't want a big round entry. That's usually kind of draggy. So you can adjust your Cunningham such that you pull the main draft to about 40 is usually a good number. And some boats you can actually, like beach cats in particular, you can pull the Cunningham and you're actually bending the mast and doing all kinds of dynamics, not too appropriate to talk in this group because most of the masts are kind of telephone poles. You can pull the Cunningham all you want and the mast still doesn't bend too much. So I think that would apply to all the boats that are here, I believe. So you can just adjust the Cunningham thinking about that number. Yeah.
Can you test jib halyard tension, so thus luff tension by doing like a break and seeing how?
No, the break is going to be what we talked about earlier, the jib lead fore and aft. So that's going to make the top match the bottom. But I think the main thing you're going to see when you adjust the halyard is this.
Telltale break, but the actual luff edge break, like where the hanks are.
Yeah, you might see some of that. When you pull the draft forward, it might get a little bit rounder. And this one, the telltales are like really hard to do that. You know, use it as the steering telltale because one's gone, the other's gone. It's such a fine entry that it's very hard to steer the boat properly when the left's a real straight entry right off the headstay. So I think you're going to find it so much easier to sail by the telltale talk with the halyard set appropriately. And there's all kinds of different sails out there, new and old and everything else, but that's the general answer, yeah.
With your telltale discussion
Yeah.
On the main, the 75% telltale.
Yeah.
We were referring to the windward telltale, right?
Yeah, we don't care about the windward ones because we're not talking about getting rid of drag. That's a high wind talk.
Are the windward ones doing anything particular that could be worrisome? I mean, just
Nope, don't even look at them in this power up condition. Yeah. We can change gears and talk about high wind, and it's a different talk, but this is, I want to really get this reinforced, as this is what we're looking at, 0 to whatever your boat starts to feel overpowered, 15, 18, who knows what the number is. Each boat's a little different, but this is all those days you're looking for power. That's what you're set up for here. Yeah, there's all kinds of gear changes as the wind goes up, but let's just make sure we digested this one first.
And what about the outhaul on a main?
Oh, okay, outhaul. Yeah, so I think you're going back to this story here. It's really got the wind coming off the jib already hitting this. So the bottom of the main is got a gigantic jib backwinding in it. The middle of the sail has almost no jib, and the top has no jib at all. So the outhaul is a really bad place to put a lot of shape upwind because that's right in the backwind of the jib. So you want that close to 0 on the outhaul for that reason. That number will change when we go off the wind, but when the jib's right there, it's almost always to have you want an upside down sail is another way of thinking about it. You want this to be flat, this to be fuller. If it's windy, that's totally upside down. You want to have the power down low and depower the top, and that's another discussion. But for light air, for this setup, that's why I'm saying outhaul tight, is because you want the bottom flat because it's already getting backwinded by the jib. Okay, yes?
Is it your jib setup, is it going to be applied the same way on a Screecher, or you're just using different?
Yeah, so we can graduate real quickly to a Screecher. So yeah, the answer is basically yes, with a bunch of nuances. So let's say we're looking for power, and the first thing they ask is when to set a Screecher or a jib upwind. Usually the answer is if you look at the water and you got those baby little white caps or maybe 7 knots of wind. Most boats, that's kind of the number they're both the same. They both have the same upwind performance. If it's blowing 8, 9, 10, that's jib time. If it's going under 7, it's definitely Screecher time. If you're before the start trying to decide which one to go, if the wind's building, go jib. If you think the wind's going to stay the same or get lighter, go Screecher. Is kind of the way to think about when to choose which sail. But as far as the actual setup, let's just say the telltales are the same as the jib, but I'm going to draw a little different cartoon to show what's maybe important on the Screecher, which is a bird's eye view with your pole and your mast and your main. So if you had the boom on the center line like we talked, and the mast is rotated and the sail is, let's say the midsection of the sail has some shape to it like that. Then you got this big old Screecher on the roller furler out here. Well, let's just draw it in like that. The telltales, you're still going to have the steering telltale, and you still have the trimming telltale up top to get the fore and aft lead properly. But the real critical things to go fast with a Screecher is the very first step is when you hoist it, you got to keep turning that handle on the halyard until the headstay goes loose. You want the Screecher to be your headstay. You don't want to share the load of half Screecher, half headstay, because then once the Screecher starts sagging, if you can imagine that, I'm just going to draw like here's the straight line of the luff. If you've got a bunch of sag in the luff, like this, all of a sudden if you just draw like the middle of the Screecher, the leech kind of goes like this. It starts to get real draggy. When the headstay moves to leeward in the middle, the leech doesn't move. So you basically put on an air brake in the entire center of the Screecher. So the very, very important first step is to pull the halyard so tight that it is a headstay. Don't ignore that, because if you sail for a few minutes and the Screecher torsion rope stretches a little bit and the headstay starts getting tight, guess what? Your Screecher's sagging, you're not going to go to windward efficiently. So step.
Again, back to this.
Yes.
Is it really it's the design and cut of that Screecher? There's some Screechers out there were built more as a reaching.
Oh yeah, some are. Yeah, right.
The angles are
Yeah.
going to be so far off.
Right. Yeah, some you'll never get away with it. So there's some where they didn't really call them. They use them almost like a code zero, big spinnaker looking thing that has a roach on it and everything else. And yeah, there's a lot of those. They call them a Screecher, but they won't do what we're trying to do here, which is an upwind Genoa, basically. So anyway, number one, sag is bad. Straight is good for going upwind. So step one there. Step two is just like we did with the jib. We move the leads fore and aft to get it to break evenly top to bottom, because you want the entire sail to be powered up. The really critical thing though is actually this. There's the clue and there's your dotted line sheet or whatever. If you've got your boat and it's got I'll draw in some windows for your cabin top or whatever. Anyways, where that clue is for an inboard outboard is super efficient and important. If you just go to the tow rail, like a lot of the hardware systems are set up for, it's basically a little too wide to go really good upwind. So it really, you don't have to go to West Marine. There's no hardware to buy. All you're going to do is just grab the lazy sheet that's already on the clue. This one that goes around the boat that you're not using. Just grab it right here, and you got 2 winches here. Just take that line and right from the clue straight to this winch. Whoops, I ran around the winch the wrong way, but anyway, and whatever. Anyway, run it to the windward winch and just tug on it a little bit. It's just 1-to-1, it's light air. You just pull the clue in just a little bit. And most of these boats, just as a starting point, like our jib, 3 inches off the spreader is our starting point, pull it into where the kind of cabin turns, and that's much better than out here where the gunnel is. So you pull it in 9 inches or maybe a foot, I don't know, on the different boats, arbitrarily. And then we have to do exactly what we did with the jib, have the Screecher set so that you can duplicate settings when you tack. And a lot of times the spreader might work. Some boats, I've done things where I put a little black mark on the main beam where the foot is, as just to set the sheet, just something on the Screecher so that when you tack over, you can duplicate the setting just like we did with the jib 3 inches off the spreader and find out, are you tacking at 90 or 100 and 110 or 120, which is common. And you have to do your homework to figure out where to sheet the sail, not just with the sheet, but also the lead, the in and out. And start out with it way in by the cabin and sheet it so it looks good, and have a way you can duplicate that when you tack over. And sight down the hatch, sight down the rear beam, find the 90-degree tree or house that's lined up with 90 and see if you're tacking at 90. And if you are, your homework's done. But if it's not, let the lead out or pull the lead in based on whether you're tacking at 80 or 110 or whatever.
So you should expect, if everything's trimmed properly, what you're saying, to be able to achieve 90 degrees.
90, that's your number, yeah. You're still on the same old magic number. If you're doing the hundreds, you probably haven't done all these things. The head stay tight, the lead in, and then the sheet wasn't enough if you're not doing 90. And it's that boat or that sail is really conducive to falling for the trap of the ice boat effect. If you get those 2 telltales flowing and it's blowing, pick a number, 5 knots of wind, and you're going, 5 knots, the apparent wind is really far forward. And if you start going 6 knots, the apparent wind goes so far forward, you'll never go 90. If you're going 7 knots, you're going nowhere near upwind. So total ice boat effect. So you have to really be religious about keeping that windward telltale dancing on the Screecher, or you're not going upwind. It'll look pretty good, and the boat speed will look really good, but the mark's over here and you're heading over here. So that's really the ice boat problem of a Screecher. You have to really push yourself to keep the boat, following the telltale, the steering telltale. Yes?
I don't want to get us into the weeds, but I'm afraid of pulling the head off of the Screecher. Like I did a Smyth Screecher once. What's
Yeah, okay.
Sail setup?
Right.
With a torsion rope, is that?
Okay, yeah, that's another important one. I don't know about your structural problem, but let's just say we have a big old Screecher on here. You know, there's your sail. I didn't get into detail, but most of the sails have either a method down here of lashing, or maybe there's lashing up here. What you always want to do is have the sail not be the headstay. You want the torsion rope to be the headstay. So that the lashing is what makes that happen. If the lashings were too tight, in this case, on this cartoon, and the cloth was trying to be your headstay, oh man, you've got to really, the sails are light, you know, they're not made to be the headstay. So what you want to do is have baby just little hairline little wrinkles along the luff tape right in the front. And that means the torsion rope is doing the work, not the cloth. So so you really have to adjust either the lashing, however your sail's set up, such that the torsion rope is 100% of the load, and the sail is just the sail. It's not trying to be the headstay. So if you had that problem, you probably had the sail trying to be the headstay, is my guess. Yeah. So yeah, that's important setup.
Any of the drills today, will we be using a Screecher, you think?
Yeah, anything under 7 knots, we can go Screecher. Over 7 knots, no. You know, so right now it's probably just over 7, so maybe not, but wait and see. Yeah. Okay, is that your Screecher questions?
I just want to confirm, when you're using that lazy sheet, is
Yep.
a barber hauler? Is
Yeah, that's in hauler, right? Yep.
In hauler?
Yep.
Could you say again, how do you attach it?
You don't. It's already attached. It's your windward lazy sheet that's already on your boat, and it's not doing anything. So just grab it just in front of the clew, and grab that loose sheet, and just right here, just pull it over to the windward winch. You'll need 5 feet of rope, and just pull on it. It's super easy. Yeah. Before you tack, you got to make sure you let it go. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Could you comment on headsail or headstay tension on the Screecher, and maybe overloading the mainsail a little bit?
Yeah. Okay.
Main sheet, because you want to get that tension on your.
Yeah. I didn't graduate to that. But you're right. Let me finish the Screecher setup, because it's not just one sail. You still got to go to the mainsail, right? So let's go back to that. So let's just say on the very first little drawing here, we had, instead of the jib up, we got the Screecher. The luff's tight. We're not ice boating on the steering, and we got the jib, the leads, and everything all set. And with that lead way in there, and you're going to tack at 90. I didn't really talk about this, but let me do this now. So the main sheet, the recommendation was boom, center line, wherever that traveler has to be to put the boom in the center with the main and jib. It goes out the window. The biggest thing is you're getting a lot of backwind off the Screecher, so the traveler needs to be way the heck hiked up high to not have a big bubble kind of luffing in the sail down low where it's getting backwinded. You want to have the boom up so it looks wrong. It'll definitely look wrong. The boom has to be way to windward of center to get rid of that bubble in the sail. Outhaul super tight, and surprisingly, you might actually find that with it set up like that, make sure you de-rotate the mast. Do your same blindfolded test of mainsail to mast, and you'll probably find in that light air with the Screecher, you can actually de-rotate the mast a little bit, so it kind of flattens out the bottom section where it's getting backwinded, by the Screecher. But that technique I just taught you with make sure it's a fair on the leeward side is all you have to do, because the boom's up, so the mast can de-rotate a little bit. As far as the main sheet, you're gonna follow the same numbers. It's still gonna be at the stall at the top. It might be, most people thinking light air, ease off a little bit, get some power, but with the Screecher, that's death. So you want to definitely follow that technique that we had with the jib for max power at the top. So traveler way up, so the booms, pick a number at least 9 inches above center line. The traveler might be way up at the cockpit seat or whatever on your boat to make it do that. But the main sheet technique will be the same. You really got to tug on that baby to make sure you do stall the 100% Telltale 100% of the time, and the 75% Telltale about half the time, so that you're really powered up. And that'll do what you're asking. The main sheet is what's going to be your running backstay to get the headstay tight for the Screecher. So you have to follow that main sheet technique to do that. And I think then you'll have everything in harmony. The two sails working together if you follow that technique. And again, you have to do all that, tack over, duplicate your setting on the Screecher sheet in particular, and the lead, the in-hauler, and make sure you're tacking at 90 degrees. And that doesn't usually happen the first time. You have to do it a couple times to figure those things out. But that's how to make the Screecher consistent. So when you go down the race course, you're not thinking about all this stuff. You've already done your homework, and you just come off the starting line, and you know when you tack, the lay line's going to be at 90. There's no mystery. Oh, where do we tack for the lay line? You know, because you know your boat tacks at 90. It really takes away a lot of that mystery and the tactics, later on down the race course, where you can trust that you're tacking at 90 degrees, and you know when to hit the lay line and not overstand, or worst case, understand. And I thought we were tacking at 90, but we're really tacking at 100. We can't believe the mark. Got to take 2 more tacks with the Screecher and really kill ourselves. Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to throw it out here.
Yeah.
Whose boat tacks through 90 degrees here?
With Jim.
Yeah, only the winners. Yeah.
I was going to say, when you tack over on the other side when it's 90 degrees, I'm like, okay, who's going to yell out, you went too early first?
Yeah. The weather mark will yell at you. Yeah. Yeah.
And there won't be any wind shifts.
Yeah, no, never. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, the coach is always right. Just figure that out right now. Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's just say we're all going fast upwind. Only 1 point of sail now. Power up conditions, 0 to maybe 15 knots of wind, with main and jib, or if it's under 7 knots, it'd be main and Screecher. Let's not even talk about reaching, because that's a whole other world. But let's try to switch gears to the same exact discussion. But let's go upwind now, and let's say artificially it's blowing 20 out here. What would we do different on the little cartoons? The very first thing is let's draw in the same little picture. Well, obviously we've got the jib. We still got our little steering telltales, our trim telltales, and our mainsail, whatever, with its little telltales out there that we're not going to use upwind, but they'll be advantageous downwind when we talk about telltales downwind. But let me not miss one thing back with the Screecher talk. That's super important. And then I'll jump into the higher wind. The one thing that with the Screecher that's super important is maybe I'll just draw a whole new picture here. The boat, we don't care about the almonds right now, and the pole, and the big old giant Screecher, and then the mainsail is hiked way up to windward here, like that, traveler to windward. The real key here is if our boat was in balance hydrodynamically under the water, let's say helm-wise with main and jib, now we put this big giant sail way in front of the daggerboard with a lot of power, and it's a big sail. It's probably 2 or 3 times the size of your jib. It has a propensity to cause a leeward helm problem, and you're going slow, and your foil, your daggerboard, the lift is a function that goes up by the square of your velocity. So you're not going 10, you're going only 5. It doesn't mean your lift is cut in half. What's the square root of 10? So it goes by the square. So the daggerboard's marginally big enough to keep it from stalling and having you slide sideways with 3 hulls going sideways instead of 3 hulls going through the water. The drag goes up infinitely if you get leeward helm, because not only is your daggerboard here small, if your rudder isn't in the line of the boat, it's like this, your tiller's to leeward, it's actually lifting to leeward, where the board's trying to fight all the sail loads going to windward, so all of a sudden your board that's already too small, the rudder's making it even smaller because it's pushing you the wrong way. So the whole key is to try to get your boat back into, not windward, but at least try to get neutral helm so that they're both working equally. So now the rudder's actually pulling the right direction when it's straight in line with the boat. They both have the same exact angle of attack, right? If that's at 0 and that's neutral, right? If your tiller's in line with your boat, they're both working to fight the sails. And that's why you have to artificially crank that traveler way the heck up there. Is not so much for the aero, but it's partially the aero getting rid of the bubble in the bottom, but the hydrodynamic balance of your boat is super critical to get the main sheet tight, the traveler way up, so you got a lot of leech in the back of the bus, so load the rudder with that. If you don't do those things and you just get lazy and leave the boom in the center and the main knot all the way in by the telltales, you'll have this horrendous leeward helm, and you'll never get to windward with the Screecher. So it's not even an aerodynamic problem, it's a hydro. You're just totally out of balance. So anyway, I should have said that earlier, but that's, unless you have questions on that, we'll jump right into the high wind cartoon, and we'll try to.
I think, Randy, the challenge is on some boats, you're going to
Yeah.
have to find where that balance is. I mean, you may
Oh.
not be able to run those conditions
Yeah, right.
because you
Yeah.
can't get the balance. If you're out there
Yeah.
running with
Right.
Lee Helm, that's not
Yeah,
going to
yeah. So and I want to make sure I'm really clear on the Lee Helm. A lot of people talk about, oh, how does it feel? I could care less how it feels. Okay, because no matter what boat we're talking about, whatever sail you have up here, if your rudder was, let's just say, like a Hobie Cat or something, halfway tilted back, even though you have daggerboard rudders, let's say it was halfway up, you're going to have a horrendous helm. Doesn't mean your sails are wrong, doesn't mean your balance is wrong, it means your helm is heavy. So that's what people talk about, how it feels. That's why I'm not talking feel. I'm talking where that tiller is relative to the center line of the boat. That's your computer that takes all your aerodynamic stuff and tells you how the hydrodynamics working, is whether that rudder is straight with your boat when you're going in a straight line, or the tiller's to windward helm, or is the tiller to leeward, and you got lee helm and a big problem. Because the tiller is your indicator. So if you put a black mark on the deck right in the center and you see if the tiller's over it, neutral helm, okay. If it's on the leeward side, that's a red flag. Pull the traveler up. Get the back of the bus loaded up. So that's, it's so easy to always look at telltales and look up, but the hydrodynamic is just as important, especially in the low speed sailing, to get that tiller in the middle. And the other things you can do is you can, go back to old Hobie 16s. They didn't have dagger boards or anything. But if they light air, they'd go forward and they'd get some helm, they'd put the bow, the trimarans work the same thing. Get your weight forward, not just get rid of the noise on the transom and get it light, but you stick the bows in the water. They're sort of like dagger boards in a way. It moves the center of effort way forward, lateral resistance. So you get rid of that lee helm. So if you have 3 guys sitting in the cockpit, nobody in the front, and you're popping a wheelie, that's adding to your lee helm problem. So leave the helmsman maybe back there, but get the other 2 guys way forward, stick the bows down deep, and you'll watch the tiller go from lee helm to neutral. It makes a big difference on these boats to get the crew in that condition, especially the Screecher forward. Okay, let's just stop right there if there are any more light air questions, or otherwise we'll graduate quickly to.
So from a time check, Randy, I know we're
Yeah.
at 10 o'clock now.
Okay,
But again,
yeah.
we've got till this afternoon, so this
Yeah.
is not
Yeah.
cast in stone.
Right.
We kind of
Yeah.
threw the schedule
Yeah.
originally.
Yeah.
And I think part of this is today is that knowing that the forecast tomorrow is pretty light.
Not much wind tomorrow. Yeah.
Morning.
Right. Yeah.
Are you going to try to focus on downwind today too?
Yeah, I'm going to run through this real quick, and then I think it's just not good to go out there and just sail.
Right.
You can do that any day of the week, but we're trying to do it with a whole new focus, thought pattern. Yeah.
They're going to go practice.
Oh no, we're going to do this. Yeah, on the water. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. So heavy air. Let's just say if you just take a geometric center of effort of the mainsail and the jib, and the mast is part of that, but you put a dotted line between the two, and that's the big one, that's the small one. So let's just say, generally if you followed the cartoon on the first page, the dot, the center of effort is, way up here where that circle is. What our goal here in the high wind is to we're starting high wind, meaning we're starting to, run out of riding moment. We're getting a little scary. The main hulls may be kissing the water. It's like, oh, okay, we want to have as much power to make us go forward, but we don't want to tip over. So the best way to do that is to lower the center of effort. So that's going to be our focus in heavy air, is to lower the center of effort is number 1. Number 2, we want to get rid of drag. We had a pretty draggy setup before. We had a lot of separated flow. We got the separated flow on the windward side of the main where the mast is rotated and leaving a big air bucket there. We're going to get rid of drag, and we're going to lower the center of effort. Those are the 2 things we're going to do as gear changes as it gets windy. So how do we do that? Okay. So the very first thing is, with both of those as being our focus, we're going to not set up the telltales to match top and bottom. We're going to have the jib lead maybe move back a little bit so that the bottom stays flat, but the top, there's not much down tension on the leech, so it twists open, and a twisty top jib let's just say the top of the jib's going for a free ride and the bottom's fully powered, we lower that little dot down a little bit, okay? So that's, and we flatten out the foot by putting the lead aft. So those are the two things we'll do in heavy air on the jib, is lower the dot by laying the top left a little bit earlier than the bottom. So it's not in harmony. The top and bottom, we're not using every square foot. We're trying to get rid of the square feet up here and the square feet up on the top of the jib, so that we're lowering the center of effort. And then to get rid of drag, we just flattened out the foot. So we're sailing a little flatter sail down low. The next one is we graduate back to the mast. So if this was our, perfect blind hand, fair mast into sail light air, it has a bunch of turbulence because the wind doesn't do this, obviously. It takes an easy route, and there's a big air bubble in here of drag. So now we're going to try to get rid of drag, so the new shape, even if the sail was the same, we're going to try to get laminar flow on both sides, and the telltale that tells us that is right here and right here, the two mast rotation telltales, the ones that are way forward of those telltales. So if you go too far with that concept, and let's just say you put the mast like that, the wind does not go around there, that telltale will yell at you right away that it's starting to spin. If you have this one spinning like I advocated in light air, you want to rotate back till it just starts to flow here, and you still have flow there. That got rid of all the drag of the mast, and now it fares in on both sides. So we don't have as much lift. It's like a flatter sail. It's a less powerful sail, but we got rid of the drag, so we have more power than we need, right? It's windy.
You want them
So,
both to
flow back, yes.
flow back.
Yes, and the mast rotation, just adjust that till you get those telltales on both sides
So
to
that
flow.
not the leeward one pasted and the windward one occasionally fluttering.
Yeah, it's going to be windy. We want them both flowing. That's your goal. Yeah. Okay, so that's the mast. Is get the mast telltales to tell you that you got it, so that you got rid of that bubble of drag on the windward side, which is a big bubble. If you try to draw it in here, it may not be that big, but the windward side had a big bubble of drag. We just got rid of. So that drag is what you're trying to get disappeared. The other thing is that we're going to try to lower the center of effort. You can depower the sail by just dropping the traveler, but it doesn't lower the center of effort. So I want to lower the dot. Okay, it's easy to depower, you just let anything out, but we're trying to do it in an efficient manner. We want to have a sail that this part is working and this part up here is kind of feathered. So we essentially put a reef in the sail by getting rid of drag and lowering the center of effort is kind of what we're doing. So the way we're going to do that is you can crank on the Cunningham, and that'll quite often, most of these sails flatten it somewhat. But the main thing is we want to set up a twist component that sets the right amount of power for the amount of wind you're in. So if you're overpowered, you can start getting all these telltales to flow by cracking off the sheet a little bit. You're steering by this one still. So whoever's doing the main sheet, make sure the driver's still steering. Okay? And then we'll set the main to kind of match that. But we're going to ease it out, and get all these telltales flowing up here. Get rid of all the drag on the leeward side, get rid of that. We had a bit of a bubble of separated flow on the back. That just disappeared, so we dropped that drag. We have less power now, but we have a real low drag sail now. So we got rid of the drag, and by easing the main sheet, we're letting this part a feather, so it's going for a free ride up there. You still see the same size sail, but the wind doesn't. It's kind of feathered into the wind. The bottom is what you want to have working. So we don't just dump traveler because we're overpowered. We twist off the sail. So we have two different sails. The bottom is powered, the top's depowered, and then you got your center of effort lower. So you got as much power as the boat can handle, but you're doing it down lower. If your competitor didn't do that and you just dropped the traveler, his dot's still way up here. He has to depower a whole bunch more, not to, let's say, tip over, than you did. You can have, by having this down low, you can have a lot more power than he has because you're not heeling because your dot is lower. It's kind of the concept we're trying to achieve. So yes.
So do you still keep the boom on the center line?
Yeah. So there's this kind of has a moving target because it gets, as the wind goes up, the force goes up by the square of the velocity. So 18 knots and 22 is a huge difference. So one answer doesn't, like in light air, you're always looking for power. But when it's windy, there's going to be gears you got to walk through. So first we're going to start to twist it. And if that's still not enough, we're going to have to start to drop the traveler. So that's going to be your steps. So you want to keep the traveler up because that's kind of keeping the bottom powered. But if you drop the traveler, that's like a whole barn door. The whole sail moves. So it doesn't affect your dot, which is our primary thing we want to do. It just depowers the entire sail, which is what you have to do because you don't want to tip over. So that's kind of phase 2.
And
yes?
And I'm interpreting that, and that phase 2 is basically managing, let's say you've got a 10-mile-an-hour gust differential.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you're using the traveler to manage the gust
right,
differential within that range.
Yeah, you get into the real world, it's not perfectly steady like I'm talking. the dynamics of it all, you got to start adjusting. You know, in light air, everything's set up so stagnant that it's all up to the driver to follow those telltales. Everything's powered up 100% top to bottom. You aren't worried about being overpowered. You just want to have every square foot working equally. When it's windy, you're right. It's the wind is you're at the limit of your riding moment, let's say. So another 2 knots of wind in a puff, you got to do something, or else you have to feather the boat and go slow, which you don't want to do. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we might have some heavy air, but I think I just want to walk through that. So that's kind of upwind, and 80% of your life was the first cartoon. This 20% is what you hope for, but you don't get too often when it's windy. Okay. All right, let's try to go downwind real quick. So we got, let's just draw in something big here. Big old spinnaker here. And, well, I would have a jib in here too. But maybe I didn't draw a very good cartoon, but okay. Sorry. Again, it's going to be the same methodology of whatever. The spinnaker comes first. We're going to set it, steer to it. Then we can do the jib if the jib's up, set its telltales, then the mast, and then the main. And now we can actually have the traveler telltales be something you can look at instead of just arbitrarily put the boom in the center line, whatever. And then the traveler's in the top, or the telltales in the top. So let's start out with that. Let's just say we've got some telltales here, and that we'll call those our steering telltales again, just like on the jib or the screecher. The key is to set the spinnaker and have a mark on your sheet, or some boats line up the clue with the leeward shroud, I don't know, whatever it is. You have to have something that's very specific about where that trim is, so that when we jibe in this, guess what?
We go 90.
90. There you go. I know, it sounds kindergarten, but it works. Okay, anyway, so we're going to set the sheet arbitrarily, steer by that. Now we're going to set the other sails to match that. And when this starts to curl, we look at the driver and go, what's going on? Don't yell at us. I've got the sheet in my hand, but I'm not going to do anything unless you're just not really reacting. So this is like in steady, light air conditions. Set the spinnaker, steer to the spinnaker. We're going to set the other sails to match it. So if you follow that one telltale, the whole sail plan is together. We're not just letting the sheet in and out, and then if you let the sheet out a foot, okay, now we're going to let the jib out 4 inches and the main traveler down 6 inches. And nobody ever does that. They just let one sail go and they let 2 stall. So the idea here is to keep all 3 sails trimmed to this homework assignment, get them all set up, and then steer that one telltale, and bingo, everything's together. So that's the concept. Okay, so the steer to that. The jib, I usually really, in the real world, don't set them perfectly. I set them in kind of a soft set mode. So if it was perfect, I let it out just a couple inches because it's a stupid little sail. But if the driver's going up and down, and he goes down, or she, and the leeward telltales all stall, it sends out a big bunch of turbulence and causes more problems than it's gaining. So I sort of set up the jib a little bit soft set to allow for that reality of steering up and down. So the leeward telltales don't stall, and the luff might look a little soft at times. Who cares? It's better than the other side of having it cause a bunch of havoc. And the beauty of the jib up is it not just the 200 square feet or whatever the jib, but it turns the wind the second time, the spinnaker the first, the jib the second, and it makes that bottom of the main get kind of backwinded twice, which is really good to keep the telltales flowing, because a lot of times you'll drop the jib and the main stalls. Okay, putting the jib up, you get the little bit of power of the 200 square foot jib, but you get the power of the 400 square foot main or whatever it is, also. by having the jib be a leading edge flap. So that's your beauty of having the jib up. Then we graduate to the mast. So now we go back to the draggy shape. We got the leeward side is fair, but obviously the main's out, so it needs more rotation, than upwind. But again, that's your same thing as upwind. Just make sure the leeward side is a fair continuation of the mast into the mainsail. The Traveler, now these Telltales finally work. The main sheet Telltales still work, but we'll start at the bottom and set the Traveler. Steering, of course, by this, got to be your swivel head. Make sure the driver's on the Telltales before you do your Traveler or your main sheet. I usually like to start with the main sheet too far out and the Traveler all the way at the bottom. It's just a good way to start this cartoon, and just slowly pull it on in. And you'll see all the Telltales, when everything's out, they're all flowing, but we're not getting much power out of the main. Start trimming it in until we get the same thing we had before. This one, the 25 is flowing, the 50 is flowing, the 75 is about half the time, and this one's stalled part of the time at least, if not most of the time. That's your Traveler. So you're really turning the wind as much as you can. You get a little separation in the back, a little drag. We don't care. We just want max power. So that's your Traveler. Same exact talk we had on the main and light air. Start with them all flowing, pull it in. You'll start to lose this one and lose that one part of the time. Have the 50% and the 25% flowing 100% of the time, and you're done. So that's your top to bottom main. Everything matches that Telltale. Everything has to be confirmed by a jibe to get the 90, and then the sheet is what the variable. So okay, it was at the shroud. Okay, if you're going too fast, you gotta let the sail out a little bit. So put the clew and a foot in front of the shroud, whatever, and then sit and jibe again and see if it's 90. That's your methodology to get the boat set up for VMG sailing and have every Telltale flowing. So that's what we'll be doing on the water.
Facing off there, how often is your 75 braking on the bottom main?
You can probably get about 50% there. Yeah, okay. Right. Yeah, should work.
And that's just on the leeward side,
right? I don't care about the windward, because the windward's all about drag, no drag. The leeward side's all your power. So if the backside stalls in the front, you're in trouble, because it stalls up here, it stalls all the way back. So we got to keep the 50 and the 25 100% of the time flowing, guaranteed. These back ones you can get to where they're dancing and having some separated flow.
One thing, Randy, I know on our boat over the years that with the spin, that we have pre-marks set on our sheets and so forth.
Yep.
Because a lot of times the factor we haven't talked here is that apparent wind is going to move. If you
Yes.
get things dialed, that
Right.
apparent wind's
Yeah.
going to move. So the issue
Yeah.
when you can jibe, I mean, if you just
Right.
set up
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
didn't really build your apparent wind yet,
Right.
that's your 90 versus
Right.
you build it and the boat will go faster, and then now your 90 will work because you're
Yeah.
driving down deeper.
Yeah.
It's really finding where that balance is.
Well, I did nickname them properly, the 90% problem. So if you're following by the Telltales, all that apparent wind is exactly right, because you set that up for the apparent wind that's going to make you jibe at 90. So if you steer by that, all those technical things you just brought up are answered. Your apparent wind, if that windward Telltale starts dancing and starts to curl, it's making you turn to follow that apparent wind. If the apparent wind or the true wind, or whatever, it doesn't matter. If it turns, the Telltale is going to steer you. So really that is a very valuable 50-cent instrument, that little piece of yarn. It does all that calculation for you. So it makes the whole boat stay exactly at the same apparent wind angle if you steer by that. So that's kind of the technical coolness of this whole program is how accurate those are.
And so in a consistent wind velocity situation, how much would the spin trimmer be trimming the spin then versus the drivers just driving to the change in the Telltale?
Well, the goal is 0, but the reality is you got some waves. You can't steer fast enough to accommodate the change in apparent wind, and you don't want to have the big old 800 square foot sail collapse because then the boat stops. So there are, so I would call that a 20% trimming and 80% steering in those conditions. If it's smooth water, you should be able to just lock everything off and steer. So That's the one variable that could be.
And then the other variable would
Yeah.
be if it's puffy. The
Yeah,
puffier
that's right.
it is,
You might not be able to steer fast enough. Yeah, right. But you don't want the trimmer steering the boat. You want the driver steering the boat and the trimmer just making up for little nuances of waves or wind shift or something like that. And go back to, like if your sail starts to curl, grind the winch a little bit at the foot, but then make sure you talk to your helmsman. No, I got it in a foot. I'm trying to let it back out to our magic 90-degree number and let it back out to the setting. So it's only temporary that you're doing a change. You're going right back to clue on this route or wherever your magic place is. So, but communication is important when you do start moving that sheet. So the driver doesn't think, oh, that's the new thing. He's going by his zombie Telltale. Now I'm going to, now you sheeted in a foot. I'm going to drive at 100 now. Now it's or whatever. Yeah.
So, like a lot of people in light wind, we drop our jib going downwind.
Right.
And then when you get close to the mark, you put the jib up.
Right.
Then we tend to over tighten the jib a tiny bit because we've found that it gives too much, it makes the spinnaker collapse.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So the key here is you want to do your homework here so that you're driving at 90 and you got the apparent wind work. And the times where this technique with the jib does not work is in the real light stuff where you're kind of bouncing in waves. And if the jib is actually causing more damage than good, you do have to drop it. Then you have to redo the main, let the traveler out, let the main sheet out, and everything else. So usually these boats, if you're going about 4 knots or so through the water, the jib can go up. If it's anything less than that, yeah, it's super light air.
I guess part of my, and that's fair enough. When it's, let's say we're going 10 to 14, we always tend to over tighten the jib.
Yeah.
Just because it winds up having so much volume that sometimes the jib doesn't even look like it's not a pretty sail.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's all sort of, the angles are it gets too deep too rapidly.
Too deep, right. Yeah, you might follow the words I used was kind of soft set. So I always set the jib so you never have the leeward telltale stall. If anything, you want to have a little bit of ease, so if anything, it's a little bit soft on the entry. In other words, luffing just a touch on the steering gyrations as far as performance. Now, as far as your issue where the sail is just too round, and you're, let's say, following this new textbook of 90-degree jibe angles, and it's still too round, you could actually help your jib if you had a hardware system that had barber haulers to pull it outboard, and then it'll actually look good and be trimmed right instead of the inboard track, jib tracks.
Downwind with just your jib. Without your spinnaker.
Right.
And now all of a sudden your jib just
it's too full. Yeah.
It's crinkly.
Yeah. So that's what you can, if you want to really optimize that, you put some little tweakers on it, the barber haulers. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I've had maybe 1 or 2 spinnakers where the telltales are positioned well to do this, and like 4 spinnakers where they're just in the wrong place. Is there like a rule of thumb on where to put them to make sure they work right?
Yeah, usually it's got to be up in the front. So if you're back 2 or 3 feet, it's already kind of too late. So 10 inches, 12 inches, 14 inches back from the luff tape is a great spot where it's an early indicator of flow.
How far off the bottom?
A lot of times it really isn't critical for a technical thing. It's more, to me, I don't like to be looking up and crinking my neck because I like to look at the tactics. So I'd like to keep it fairly low for that reason. Yeah. 20, 25% up.
I think it might have been 2 to 3 feet back. And maybe
Oh yeah, that's your problem. Yeah, they don't indicate quickly or accurately. Yeah, they're kind of delayed. And then let's just talk a little further. Let's say in the real world, I can draw these on all day long and they look perfect. But when you're sailing along, let's just say the leeward telltale does stall. The wind went aft a little bit and you went up a wave and you kind of slowed down. To me, if the leeward telltale stalls, spins or drops, that's a gigantic red flag. You actually have to be fairly aggressive on pushing the helm and getting the boat up, because once that stalls, it stalls all the way back, and then if 1001, 1002, 1000, 3 you're going to lose the jib, another 1,003 you're going to lose the entire main. All of a sudden the entire sail plan is stalled, and the lift coefficient 1.8 versus a bed sheet of 1. In other words, your sail area just got cut almost by half when you stall an entire thing. The whole boat will just drop dead in speed, and then you got to go, oh, now I got to really head up 40 degrees to get the spinnaker working, then the jib working, the main working. So the red flag is if this leeward telltale even has a little twitch of not flowing, get a little bit aggressive and head up. Make sure you keep that one flowing, because if that's just a precursor of the history of what's going to happen in the next 10 seconds, the entire sail plan is going to be dead. So you have to kind of stay awake on that, especially the leeward telltale. The windward one is sort of the beauty of the ice boat. If the windward starts dancing, you want to milk it. You can put a little bit of pressure, just slowly try to go down with that speed you just got, and stay with that windward telltale, and it'll, thanks to your boat speed, you can go a little lower. But if you see any indication of the leeward telltale going, that's, give it a little jab, get it back up again. So kind of aggressive up and mellow down is a steering technique, to follow that telltale for your best VMG. Okay. All right. So we got going upwind and downwind. 10:30. Let's.
Talk a little bit about our one safety thing we're going to.
Okay, let me talk about what you do on the water, and then we'll jump into safety. Then we're sailing. So I think we're done with the technical. Unless you have any questions about what we already covered: upwind, downwind, and heavier air if we need to. Yeah.
How much does this change the non-rotating mast? I don't want to derail.
Yes.
But
Yeah. No, that's important. Yeah. No, the spinnaker would be the same concept. You steer by the telltale. The jib is actually maybe a little more beneficial because it'll actually fare in that bad leeward side of the mast that doesn't rotate and might make the main flow. So actually a non-rotating mast you might find is even more helpful by having the jib up. As far as the telltales, you're probably not going to look at the 25% like we religiously do on a rotating mast sail. It's got to flow on a rotating mast sail or else everything's stalled. But on yours you might have some dancing in the front, but make sure the 50% ones are flowing. And that's where you get some power. And then the back ones, exactly what we said, you can have some separated in the back. So, yep.
And some of these kites have rough cords, so how do you adjust that?
Okay, the spinnaker, like the left cord is, like if your sail is, who knows what the spinnaker looks like, but if you pull this left cord, the real sail looks, there's a lot of roach or left curve, whatever in the front. As you pull this cord, it pulls this back this way, so that if you pull this back, it's going to go like this. You get a rounder entry by pulling the cord. So if you get kind of aggressive, it might look like that little J I just drew. That's kind of radical. If you had it all the way loose, you might sometimes have the luff tapes be a little bit loose depending on how the person sewing the tape on was. So you might need just a little bit of tension just to make sure that entry has a little bit of curve to it. But if you get aggressive and you get the turn of your knuckles or something entry like that, it's way too tight. If you have any little fluttering, especially on the leech, but even the luff can do that, you might need just a little bit of tension on that rope. Or leech cord, luff cord, either one. Okay. So let's jump out on the water and let's we got some local knowledge. You got to stay in the green and red to get out here. There's an old channel to turn left if you get local knowledge. If not, stay in the red and green. You'll be in deep water. If you turn left early, you'll run aground. So if you're kind of new here, that's the no-no land. We're going to go on out to the E marker. There's basically a race course out there. They have permanent markers every 45 degrees. So if we kind of hover around E, the first thing we want to do is not have 10 boats scatter all over the bay. It's a big bay, and this whole thing falls apart real quick. So that's our entry point, is get out to E. The next drill is kind of a collector drill, so to speak. So what I want you to do is let me describe this. So the collector drill is not a drill we do as a fleet, we do as an individual. So this is, each boat's going to work on this exact skill, and then just the 90 up, 90 down. So in other words, you're going to go through everything we just talked about on the easel here. Just your jib leads, your spinnaker sheets for both upwind and downwind, and try to achieve that 90-degree magic number for upwind and downwind. So you're on your own. Each boat will kind of meet out there at the E mark to have a geographic center, but you'll go upwind and tack. You can go by the compass if you don't have anything to look at for the 90-degree tacking, and really dial in the number of inches off the spreader for your jib. Downwind, dial in where the clue is relative to the shroud or whatever works on your boat to duplicate your spinnaker setting, and try to get these two numbers for both upwind and downwind at 90, and do all the Telltale cartoon that we're talking about. That's going to take you a little while, but at any rate, go upwind and downwind and try to stay in that vicinity of the E marker, so we're not all over the place.